All right, so Samsung, let's talk about their privacy policy.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I usually just click accept without even thinking about it.
Right.
But then I started thinking about, like, what am I actually agreeing to?
Yeah, it's a great question. Most people don't. And these documents, I mean, they seem like digital gibberish, right?
Yeah.
But they actually hold all the answers about how companies like Samsung collect and use our information.
It feels like a lot more than just phone calls and text messages these days, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're living in a world of smart TVs and smart refrigerators and smart washing machines and everything's smart.
Right. And Samsung's latest privacy policy, and they have a U.S. supplement, by the way, makes it very clear that they're collecting data from all of these connected devices.
Oh.
It's like they're casting a wider net than we even realize.
Yeah. So for today's deep dive, we're going to really take a deep dive into this and try to suss out what is going on here.
Yes, and there is a lot to unpack. Samsung gathers information in several different categories, and some are obvious and some are not so obvious.
Like what? Give me the rundown. What are we talking about here?
Well, first of all, the obvious stuff. They collect device information,
Okay.
like your model, your software versions, your IMEI and IP addresses.
Right. So like what phone I'm using.
Right, and that's pretty standard.
Yeah, that makes sense. They need to know, to make sure it's compatible.
Right.
What else?
Well, it goes a little deeper. They also collect usage data. So how long you're using certain apps, what you're searching for. They even collect those error reports that your phone sends.
Wow. Okay, so it really is like they have a digital diary of my every move.
Pretty much.
That's a little unnerving.
It is a little unnerving, but it's also remarkable from a technological standpoint. And it's not even limited to your phone. Remember how we were talking about all those other connected devices?
Right.
They're very clear in their policies that they're collecting data from all of those as well.
Hold on. Are you saying my Samsung fridge is keeping tabs on me and my late night snacking?
We can't confirm the fridge gossiping part,
Okay.
but we can confirm that the policy says they're collecting data from those devices too.
This is where I start to get a little uneasy, right? Because it's one thing if it's like my phone, but now we're talking about my fridge, my washing machine. Where does it end?
Yeah, that's the question that a lot of people are asking, and it's valid.
Yeah.
But to understand the implications, you need to look at how they're using the information.
Okay, so why? Why are they collecting all this information?
It boils down to one word: personalization.
You mean like those ads that magically appear after I've been looking at shoes online?
Exactly.
It's like they're reading my mind.
By collecting and analyzing your data, they can show you the ads, suggest products and services that they think you're going to like, and maybe you will.
So it's about making my digital life more like me.
Yeah, pretty much. They're trying to predict what you're going to need before you even know you need it. And it's not just about ads.
Okay.
They also use it to improve existing services, develop new features.
Right, so make their products better.
Exactly. And even train those AI algorithms that we keep hearing so much about. The U.S. supplement specifically talks about that.
AI algorithms. Okay. So they're basically trying to make their devices smarter.
That's the gist of it. It's pretty cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
But it also brings up a very important point. There's a trade-off here.
You mean I get all this personalization and these great products, but at what cost? At the cost of my privacy.
Yes, and this is why it's so important to understand your rights and how they share data, which is what we're going to talk about next.
Okay. So who exactly are they sharing my data with?
Okay.
Is it just them, or is it a whole bunch of companies that I don't even know about?
Well, first of all, they do share it with their subsidiaries and their affiliates, and that's pretty standard. And then there are their business partners.
That's my wireless carrier, for example.
Yes, exactly. Or if you're financing something through them, financing partners.
Okay.
And then it's not limited to just those direct relationships.
Yeah.
They also work with a variety of third-party service providers.
Okay, now we're getting into murky waters. What kind of companies are we talking about?
These are companies that handle things like repairs, customer service, advertising. They even mention customer satisfaction surveys.
Wait, so you're telling me that my level of satisfaction with my Samsung washing machine could be shared with some third-party marketing firm?
That's what it says. But they do say that these providers are also committed to protecting your information.
Okay.
However, the policy does say that they might sell your data.
Hold on, sell.
It's in there.
I thought this was a privacy policy, not like a clearance sale.
Right. It is interesting, and this is where you see a big difference in how data privacy is treated in the U.S. as opposed to, say, Europe.
Okay, because I know Europe's got that GDPR thing.
Right, which is the General Data Protection Regulation.
Yeah, so they have way stricter laws.
They do.
So in the U.S., it sounds like our data can be bought and sold.
It's a valid concern, and it's something a lot of people are talking about. But even within the Samsung policy, there are a few bright spots.
Okay, like what?
Let's talk about biometrics, for example.
Okay, so, like, is my phone secretly recording my karaoke sessions and sending them to Samsung headquarters for them to, like, I don't know, have a laugh?
I can assure you they're not doing that.
Okay, good.
At least according to their policies.
Okay, because those are private.
Yes.
So what are they doing with my biometric data?
They do use things like your fingerprint, your voice print to unlock your phone, to authorize payments, but the policy says that all that information is stored on your device.
Okay.
Not on their servers.
So it's like my phone is a vault.
Pretty much.
And they don't have the key.
They specifically state they do not share that data with any third parties.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good to know. But what about all the other data? Like, let's talk about those targeted ads.
Okay.
You mentioned that Samsung is part of these big ad networks.
Right, and that's really important to understand if you want to know how those really relevant ads show up on your phone.
So they're taking, like, all this information from everywhere and then, like, tailoring these ads.
Exactly.
That's both fascinating and a little creepy.
It is. Your data is valuable. It's
Yeah.
being analyzed. It's being shared, probably in ways that most people don't even realize. And it's why it's more important than ever to understand your rights and, like, how to navigate this whole world.
It makes me want to just chuck my phone in a river and move to a remote island and live off the grid. But, like, realistically, is there anything we can actually do? Or are we all just kind of stuck?
You might be surprised. Samsung's privacy policy actually gives you a few rights as a user.
Wait, really? It's not all doom and gloom?
No, not at all. For example, you have a right to access the data they've collected on you. You can even request corrections to it. In some cases, you can even request deletion.
Wait, are you telling me that I can be like, hey, Samsung, delete my data, forget I ever existed?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
There are legal exceptions. Like, they can keep data to prevent fraud, or if they're complying with a legal obligation. But you absolutely have more control than you might think.
Okay, so it's not like a magic erase button, but there are some things that I can do. So how do I even go about doing that?
Well, the U.S. supplement outlines a couple of options. You can submit requests through their online form, or if you'd rather talk to a human, you can always call them.
Okay.
They even have a process for, like, if you have an authorized agent that needs to act on your behalf.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, so much of this stuff just feels very overwhelming. But knowing that there are actual steps you can take is empowering.
Yeah, knowledge is power, right?
Mhm.
Especially in this day and age of data. Even just, like, reading through these policies, even just skimming the highlights can be a game changer.
Yeah, because then at least you're aware.
Exactly. You can start to see those trade-offs between convenience and personalization versus your privacy.
Right, because you kind of have to weigh them all out. Like, do I want this super personalized experience?
Right.
Or am I okay with things being a little more generic, but maybe having a little bit more privacy?
Yeah, it's like choosing between, like, a really delicious, unhealthy meal versus maybe a salad.
Right.
Like, that extra convenience comes at a cost.
Exactly. Okay. So we've talked about the data they collect, how they're using it, who they're sharing it with. We even talked about a couple things that we can do to take control of our own data. But I want to go back to this whole sale of data thing, because that still feels a little fuzzy to me.
Yeah, and it's important to understand what sales means in the context of data privacy.
Go.
Because it's not like your information is being listed on, like, a digital marketplace somewhere.
Because that would be terrifying.
Right.
I don't need that kind of attention.
It's not like they're selling your name and address directly, but it's more like they're using your data to target you with very specific advertising.
So less about selling my identity and more about selling my attention.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Because these companies are basically paying to access your digital footprint, so they can tailor their marketing in a very precise way.
Yeah, because why waste money on generic ads?
Right. Exactly. Maximize that ROI.
Okay.
But it does bring up concerns about transparency and control, especially if you're not even aware that this is happening.
Right, because it's one thing if I see an ad for, I don't know, running shoes after I've been researching marathons online,
Yeah.
but if my data is being like packaged and sold without me really knowing about it, that's a whole other thing.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to really understand the implications of this whole data sale thing, especially in the context of U.S. privacy laws. And we touched on this earlier, but these regulations, they're very different from what you see in other parts of the world, like in Europe with their GDPR.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the gold standard.
Right.
They take it very seriously over there.
They do. The GDPR really emphasizes transparency. Like, you have to consent to this. It gives individuals much more control over their own personal information. In the US, it's a little bit more fragmented. We've got this patchwork of federal and state laws that don't always offer the same level of protection.
So we've got a little bit of catching up to do here in the U.S.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. But the good news is that the conversation around data privacy, it's evolving.
Okay, good.
People are becoming more aware of how their information is being used, and we're seeing more of a push for stronger regulations.
That's good because at the end of the day, this isn't just about, targeted ads or whatever new Samsung gadget I have. It's about my privacy.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so my phone's not judging my Spotify playlist, which is good to know, and I'm probably not going off the grid anytime soon, but where do we go from here?
Well, now that we've laid the groundwork, I think it's time to really dive into the specifics of Samsung's privacy policy and what you can do to take control.
Okay, let's do it. So how do we actually do it? How do we take control? Where do we start?
Well, remember those user rights we talked about? This is where they come in. Samsung's privacy policy, the U.S. supplement specifically, actually tells you how to exercise those rights.
Okay, so it's like a choose-your-own-adventure, but for my data.
Yeah, kind of. So let's say you want to know exactly what data Samsung has collected on you. You can actually ask them for a copy.
Wait, really?
Yep.
I can just be like, hey, Samsung, what do you have on me?
Pretty much. They have to give you a copy of your data, although it might take a little time to get it to you.
Okay.
And if you see something that's not right, you can ask them to correct it.
Okay, so I can make sure my digital profile is accurate.
Right.
What about like that whole right to be forgotten thing?
Right. That's a little trickier.
Okay.
The U.S. doesn't have that same blanket right that they have in Europe, but you can ask them to delete your data in some cases.
Like what?
Well, for example, if they no longer need the data for the reason they collected it in the first place.
Okay.
Or if you withdraw your consent for them to use your data.
Okay, so it's not guaranteed, but it's worth a shot.
Right.
What about those targeted ads? Any way to get those under control?
You can manage your ad preferences
Okay.
and limit the data that's being shared for those targeted ads.
So I can have some say in what I'm seeing, even if I can't make the ads completely disappear.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. What about location tracking?
Oh, that's a big one. You can limit that. You can set it so apps only see your location when you're actually using them.
Right, because my phone does not need to know my every move.
Exactly.
Okay, this is all great in theory, but where are these settings?
Well, the good news is Samsung actually puts all their privacy settings in one place. It's pretty easy to find. You don't have to go digging around.
So you're saying they've actually made this kind of easy for us?
They've definitely made it easier, which is good.
Okay, good.
It shows they're trying.
Yeah, that's a good sign. So I'm going to go explore these settings, manage my preferences, and maybe even request a copy of my data. See what they've got on me.
I think that's a great idea. And remember, this isn't something you do once and then forget about.
Right.
Technology is changing all the time. Data privacy practices are changing. So you got to kind of stay on top of it.
It's like flossing for your digital life, right? Not fun, but you got to do it.
Exactly.
Well, for all the doom and gloom you hear about data breaches and all this, it's actually been kind of empowering to really look into this stuff.
Right.
You realize you do have some control.
Yeah.
We have rights. We have options.
Absolutely.
We just have to know what they are.
And where to find them.
Exactly. Well, on that note, I think we've done it.
We did it.
We made it to the other side of Samsung's privacy policy.
We dove deep.
We did. We unpacked it all. We figured out what it all means. And we even got some actionable takeaways. Knowledge is power.
That really is.
And we are empowered.
Yes.
So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay in control of your data.